I'm in a season where God is teaching me how to live a life of surrender. This is not a really easy thing where you have dreams, desires, and things that you really hold dearly, and God is asking you, I need you to trust me. I need you to trust me that I can be able to do that which I promised you. And times sometimes might be moving, and you can feel like this is not coming to pass. Years come, years go, and time is not moving. And when we started 2025, I know there are things that maybe you declared and trusted God to do in the month of January and February and March, and by the time you normally reach March, you're like, hala, the year is coming to an end because the year is moving so fast. We're in 2025, the third month, and looks like the year is rushing. There are things you could be trusting God for. I am trusting God for, and looks like it's, well, God, January has passed, February has passed, March is here. Where is my promise? And I'm being reminded about the story of Hannah and Elkanah. The book of 1 Samuel chapter 1 talks about the life of Hannah, who had a co-wife. She was the second wife and she was not blessed with a child. And her co-wife, Penina, was mocking her for her childlessness, and she was barren. And I'd make an assumption that through the years of barrenness, say that she used to cry and she used to be mocked year after year. I don't know for how long, but it looked like it was a long time of just crying to the Lord and asking God, bless me with a child. But there was a difference this time when she went before God with an open heart and to just cry and tell God, remember your servant, remember the cry of my heart, remember me and show me mercy and give me a child. There was a difference in this time when Hannah was praying. She surrendered her desires and her will to God. She told God that if you bless me with this child, I will surrender the child to serve you the rest of his life in your house. And it's not like somebody would think this would be selfish of God, but this is what the life of surrender is. When we make a desire in our hearts to be like an idol, is it a career? Is it social life? Is it marriage? Are there things that you really hold dearly in your heart and you really want to achieve them for your own self-gratification? And at some point when God gives them to you, they end up being an idol. So God has to check your heart and you have to come to a place of surrender. And this is what Hannah said. She desired this for so many years. But when she got her desires right and she went before God and she said, you know what, God, if you give me this child, I'm going to surrender the child back to you. And there is a reason why Hannah had to come to this place, because the kind of gift that she was going to be given, the gift of a child that God had planned for her, was not just like any other child. The condition of her heart had to be right. It wasn't just like any other random child. There was a purpose for this child that Hannah was asking for, and the position for her heart had to be in the right place until the time that she aligned her desires and her plans according to the will of God. Then heaven opened and she was blessed with a child. It's just the same as Abraham when she was asked to give his son Isaac. He did not withhold it. But it's different from the story of Hannah, since Abraham was known as the father of faith, but Hannah was just a woman who was desiring to be given a child so that her adversary, in this case Penina, would stop mocking her. She just wanted the pain to be alleviated from her life. But this was not the sole reason why she needed to have this child. There was a divine purpose for this child. And she went to the temple, cried and wept bitterly and surrendered her will and her desire and decided, God, if you give me this, I will give the child back to you. And this is exactly what she did. And God blessed the desires of her heart and gave her this child. And Samuel's ministry as a prophet was revolutionary. There is no word of Samuel that did not come to pass. God used Samuel in a powerful way, in that if Hannah was never prepared, if she was not skilled, if she did not have equipment, if she did not have the right heart, God could not have handed this child Samuel over to her. So it's just being reminded of the desires and the dreams that we have, not because God does not want to fulfill or does not care about the desires that we have. What is the condition of your heart? What is the condition of my heart? If God gave me whatever I'm asking for right now, would I be able to handle it? There's this parable. I think it's in the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 6, which talks about casting a pearl before swines. More of giving somebody something valuable, but they do not know the treasure, or they do not know the value of what they've been given. They are possibly likely to mishandle it because they do not know the treasure. So you have to be trained, and God is so merciful. And sometimes when we wait, we think God is not fair, but He's being merciful. Because if He gave us what we are asking for prematurely, and we are not equipped, our hearts are not aligned to His will, our hearts are not in the right place, we will devalue whatever He's given us because we do not know the worth of it. And so Hannah's heart had to be in the right place for her to be able to have this child, because this child was going to be used powerfully in the nation of Israel. And also just the story of the birth of John and Elizabeth. John had to be born before Christ, and he was born to an elderly woman, and the Bible says that she was very old. If the Bible says that you're very old, you are very, very old. I'm even thinking, it's not proven, but she might have been older than Sarah in this case. And for the birth of Christ, there are chronological ways and in which things happen in our life, and God has planned them all the days of our lives before any of them comes to pass. According to the book of Psalm 139, they have been ordained by God. All the steps of our lives have been ordained by God. John had to be born 6 months before Christ so that he would prepare the way. So you see, Elizabeth had to wait all these years for John to be brought to earth through her. And sometimes it looks like it's really painful. It doesn't make sense. But the child of the promise finally came to pass. And John the Baptist had to be born when he was born. Christ had to be born when he was born. And if you're in the situation of Elizabeth, how would you handle it? If you're in the situation of Sarah, how would you handle it? There's a time in my life I used to tell God, oh God, remember, I am not Sarah. Me and Sarah are two different people. You know, the things you're hoping and trusting God for, those to open career-wise, financially, socially, you know, and you're telling God, remember me, God, and just encouraging somebody there who's trusting for a child, and you're like, oh God, remember me. I'm not like Sarah. I don't have the strength. Please give me my child. Give me the child of the promise that you told me. And God will provide the desires of your heart. He will fulfill the desires of your heart. But first check, ask God to reveal those things in your heart. Having this child, is it going to be like an idol? Do you need to come to a place of surrender? Having that job, do you need to come to a place of surrender? Because if you depend on a job to provide for you, and you forget that despite the job, it's God who provides for you, it's very inevitable that you're going to idolize the job, you're going to idolize that child, you're going to idolize that marriage. So sometimes God withholds, not because He doesn't care, but because He knows the condition of our hearts, and He needs us to position ourselves. He needs us to come to a place of surrender and still acknowledge that He's a good Father. He will grant you the desires of your hearts.